The front door creaked open as Captain Daniel Vega stepped inside, his boots clicking softly on the worn wooden floor. The house smelled faintly of lavender and dust, a scent that used to mean home, comfort, safety. Now it felt foreign, like time had stopped here while the world outside kept spinning. He let the door close behind him without a sound, not wanting to wake anyone. His heart was pounding, a mix of excitement and nerves. Months of sand, gunfire, and sleepless nights had carved lines into his face, but at that moment he felt almost boyish again. He pictured Sophia's laugh, the way she used to run up and hug him whenever he came home. He dropped his duffel bag near the hallway and looked around. The framed photos were still on the walls, his parents smiling, Sophia at her graduation. But there was something off. The curtains were drawn tight, the air heavy. A faint murmur of music came from the back of the house. He frowned. Sophia never liked playing music this late. He started down the hallway, the soft glow of a lamp spilling from beneath her bedroom door. Daniel smiled to himself. He imagined the look on her face when she saw him, unannounced after nearly a year away. He wanted to see her surprise, her joy. His hand reached for the doorknob. Then he hesitated. He heard something inside, the sound of quiet sniffling, crying. His body froze. That wasn't the kind of crying that came from a movie or a song. It was soft, broken, muffled, the sound of someone trying to hide pain. His instincts, the ones that had kept him alive in war zones, kicked in instantly. He turned the knob slowly and pushed the door open. Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, her shoulders hunched, her face pale in the dim light. Her long hair hid part of her face and her eyes were red, swollen from tears. She gasped when she saw him, confusion and fear flashing across her expression before recognition set in. "Danny?" she whispered, standing up, her voice trembling between disbelief and relief. Daniel's grin faltered when she instinctively pulled down the sleeves of her oversized sweater. The movement was quick, defensive, and his eyes caught the faint outline of bruises peeking out near her wrist. The room seemed to close in on him. His stomach twisted. That wasn't from a fall. That wasn't from clumsiness. He'd seen bruises like that before. On civilians caught in crossfire, on the helpless who'd been hurt and silenced. Sophia. His voice came out softer than he intended, but it carried the weight of dread. "What happened?" She wiped her face quickly, forcing a shaky smile that fooled no one. "You're home," she said, trying to sound casual, her eyes darting toward the door as if afraid someone else might hear. Daniel took a step forward, and the floorboard creaked beneath him. Sophia flinched at the sound. That single reaction, that fear, cut deeper than any bullet he'd ever faced. He stood there, frozen in the doorway, realizing something terrible had been happening in his absence. And whatever it was, it had left his sister not just bruised, but broken. Daniel's voice, low and controlled, trembled with something deeper than anger. It was fear, wrapped in fury. "Who did this to you?" he asked again, softer this time, but the edge in his tone was sharp enough to cut through her silence. Sophia shook her head, tears glistening on her lashes. "It's nothing, Danny. I fell." She tried to sound convincing, but her words quivered like paper in the wind. Daniel's jaw clenched. He'd seen people lie to protect their abusers before. Soldiers covering for cruel officers, civilians making excuses for bruises that told the truth better than words ever could. He stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the room until it swallowed hers. "Don't lie to me, Sophia," he whispered, his voice breaking in the middle, betraying the storm beneath. "You're shaking. You think I don't see it?" He reached out, gently lifting her sleeve before she could stop him. Dark, ugly marks ran up her arm. Fresh, tender, uneven. They weren't from a fall. They were from fingers that had gripped too tightly, from someone who thought they owned her. She jerked away, panic flashing in her eyes. "Please," she pleaded, her voice cracking, "don't do this. Don't get angry. You don't understand. He'll hear you." Daniel froze. The words hit him like a shot. "He'll hear you." A sudden noise came from the kitchen. A scrape of a chair, a bottle clinking against the counter. His head snapped toward the sound, instincts fully awake now, the soldier in him replacing the brother for a moment. His body stiffened, every muscle ready. He, Daniel's tone turned deadly calm. "He's here?" Sophia's eyes widened. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words caught in her throat. The fear on her face told him everything. Without another word, Daniel turned toward the hallway. His boots thudded against the floor, slow and deliberate, each step heavier than the last. As he neared the kitchen, his pulse thundered in his ears. The faint glow from the overhead bulb flickered, casting broken light across the counter littered with beer bottles and cigarette ashes. A man's voice mumbled something. Off-key humming, careless and drunk. Daniel's hand tightened into a fist. Behind him, Sophia's voice came, barely a whisper. "Danny, please." "Don't," but it was too late. He had already crossed that invisible line between reason and instinct. The line every soldier knew, the one where protection became vengeance. The man's silhouette moved in the dim light. Daniel could see the outline of his broad shoulders, his lazy stance, the swagger of someone who felt untouchable. He could smell the cheap alcohol before he even saw his face. A surge of rage rose in his chest, fierce and suffocating. Every bruise on Sophia's skin replayed in his mind, each one a reminder of the pain he wasn't there to stop. He took a slow step forward, his voice barely above a whisper, but sharp as a blade. "You've been staying here?" The man turned, startled, a half-empty bottle in his hand. "Who the hell?" He started, then froze when he saw Daniel's expression. There was no mistaking the look in those eyes. Cold, focused, trained. The eyes of a man who had seen war and was ready to bring it home. The man blinked, confusion and irritation twisting his face. "Who the hell are you?" he slurred, setting the bottle down with a clink. He tried to square his shoulders, to look intimidating, but the scent of fear had already begun to seep into the room. Daniel didn't answer. He took 2 steps forward, slow and deliberate, his eyes locked on the man's face. A face flushed with alcohol and arrogance. In an instant, Daniel's hand shot forward, grabbing the front of the man's shirt and slamming him hard against the wall. The impact rattled the dishes hanging nearby and knocked a photo frame to the floor, shattering the glass. The man gasped, his breath stuttering as Daniel's forearm pressed against his throat. "You hurt her?" Daniel's voice was low, deadly, barely human. It was the kind of voice that came from the battlefield, the kind that made men confess without a word of force. The man stammered, eyes wide, hands trembling in surrender. I didn't mean, she said she fell," he croaked. Daniel's face came closer, his breath hot with fury. "You think I'm stupid enough to believe that?" His knuckles turned white as he pushed harder, his heart pounding with images of Sophia's bruises, her trembling voice, her fear. From the doorway, Sophia's voice broke the tension. "Danny, stop!" "Please!" she cried, tears streaming down her face. Daniel's grip faltered for a heartbeat, but the rage inside him was too strong. He turned his head slightly toward her, his eyes glistening with emotion. "He hurt you," he said softly, almost to himself. "You think I can just let that go?" The man tried to shove him off, but Daniel's body moved faster, years of training taking over. He pinned the man's arm behind his back, forcing him down to his knees. "You ever lay a hand on her again?" Daniel hissed, his tone razor-sharp. "And I'll make sure you never have hands to hurt anyone with." The man whimpered. Nodding desperately, the last of his bravado shattered. For a long moment, the room was silent except for Sophia's quiet sobs and the ragged breathing of the man trembling on the floor. Then Daniel released him, letting him crumble in a heap. The soldier in him faded, replaced by the brother, the one who had failed to protect the only person he truly loved. He turned to Sophia, his chest heaving, his eyes softening. She was still crying, her hands covering her face. He stepped closer, his voice breaking as he spoke. "I'm sorry. I should have been here." She shook her head, collapsing into his arms. "You are now," she whispered against his chest, her voice small and fragile. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, his hand gently resting on the back of her head. Behind them, the man stumbled out of the room, clutching his ribs, too afraid to look back. Daniel didn't even glance his way. His focus was on Sophia, the girl who used to wait by the window for his letters, who had believed her brother was strong enough to protect the world. And now, for the first time, He realized he didn't need to protect the world. He just needed to protect her. As the night settled into silence, Daniel whispered, his voice trembling but sure, "No one will ever hurt you again, Sophia. Not while I'm breathing." She clung tighter, and for the first time in months, he let the tears fall, not from fear, but from the weight of love and the promise of redemption.